Amara Sterling clutched the digital ear thermometer, her hands trembling as she pulled it away from her son's ear. The bright red numbers on the screen flashed an alarming 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Little Zion, only 4 years old, lay curled up in the massive bed, his small chest rising and falling with shallow, scorching breaths. His face was flushed, his lips cracked and dry as he mumbled incoherently. A tide of fear washed over Amara. She frantically wiped his forehead, underarms, and neck with a lukewarm cloth, but the fever remained stubbornly high. Suddenly, Zion began to convulse. His eyes rolled back. "Zion, baby, don't scare Mama, please," Amara cried out, her voice breaking. Basic first aid training flashed through her mind. Turn him on his side to prevent choking, but her hands shook uncontrollably. "We need a hospital." She grabbed her phone from the nightstand, her fingers searching for Darius's name. The phone rang long and insistent. 1, 2, 3 times. No answer. Outside, lightning tore through the Georgia sky, followed by a deafening clap of thunder that rattled the windows of their spacious, chilly master suite in the exclusive Buckhead estate. Zion jolted. A weak whimper escaped his swollen throat. Amara bit her lip until she tasted copper and dialed again. This time, Darius finally answered. His voice was raspy, impatient, and heavy with irritation. "Hello? Do you have any idea what time it is? Why do you keep calling?" Amara choked back a sob, her voice fragmented. "Darius, please. Come home. Zion's fever is over 105. He's having seizures. I'm so scared. Please, come take him to the hospital with me." A moment of silence, then a frustrated sigh. "A fever again? He just had one last month. What kind of mother are you? Always letting him get sick. I'm in a crucial meeting with international partners. I can't just leave. Call the pediatrician or call an Uber." "But the storm is terrible. The doctor's emergency line is busy. The car—" Amara's explanation was cut short by other sounds filtering through the phone. It wasn't the rustling of papers or the tense discussions of a multi-million-dollar business meeting. It was the clinking of glasses, smooth jazz music, and undeniably, the sweet, cooing voice of a woman. "Darius, baby, come blow out the candles. Everyone is waiting for you." Amara recognized that voice instantly. Kiara Vance, Darius's new executive assistant, hired 6 months ago. She always presented herself as innocent and fragile, greeting politely and calling Amara Mrs. Thorne whenever they met. Darius seemed to have forgotten he hadn't hung up, or perhaps he simply didn't care if Amara heard. His voice returned devoid of irritation, replaced by a strange tenderness. "Sure. Coming right now, babe. Happy birthday." Happy birthday! The words pierced Amara's eardrums, tore at her heart, and shattered the last remnants of her fragile trust. Today was October 20th. She remembered now. It was Kiara Vance's birthday. His crucial meeting and international partners were just a cover to celebrate openly with his mistress. While his son fought for his life, he was happily blowing out candles for another woman. "Darius, you—" Amara screamed into the phone, but only the cold, impersonal sound of the dial tone answered her. He had hung up. Her phone slipped from her hand, landing silently on the thick carpet. She didn't have time for heartbreak or reproach. Zion was fading in her arms. Amara jumped up, grabbed a thick coat, and wrapped her son in it. She scooped him up and ran out of the master suite. The nearly 10,000-square-foot mansion was eerily quiet. The housekeeper was on leave, and the gardener stayed in the guest house at the back of the property. With this storm, calling them would take too long. She ran toward the garage, intending to drive herself. But when the garage door rumbled open, she was met with an empty space. The 2 luxury cars that usually sat there, a black Maybach and a red Porsche, were gone. Amara froze. The Maybach was Darius's daily car, and the Porsche was in her name, but the spare keys were always kept in the mudroom. Now she remembered. This afternoon, Darius had said his car was still in the shop and had asked to borrow hers to take some clients for a spin. He had taken her car to drive his mistress to a birthday party. He had even taken Otis, the family's private chauffeur, leaving her and their son stranded in the storm, carless and driverless. Amara hugged Zion tight and plunged into the blinding rain. The main gate of the estate was nearly a quarter-mile from the main road. The wind whipped her face, and the cold rain soaked her thin silk pajamas in seconds. Amara slipped. Her knee slammed hard onto the sharp cobblestones. Excruciating pain shot up to her brain, fresh blood mixing with the rainwater, but she didn't dare let go. She clutched Zion tighter, shielding him from the heavy drops with her body. Amara struggled to her feet and kept running. Her bare feet, already bloody from the gravel, felt no pain, only the suffocating fear of losing her son. When she reached the main road, it was deserted. The few taxis speeding by were occupied or refused to stop in the severe weather. Her rideshare app searched for drivers in vain. Amara stood under a dilapidated bus stop shelter, tears mixing with the rain streaming down her cheeks. She looked at Zion's pale face, overwhelmed by a sense of helplessness. She was the heiress of Sterling Industries, the wife of CEO Darius Thorne. Yet, in that moment, she was as pathetic as a beggar, unable to find transport to save her son. Just as she was about to desperately throw herself into the street to flag down a car, an old delivery truck slowed down. The middle-aged driver poked his head out. "Ma'am, what are you doing out here in this weather?" Amara lunged forward like a drowning woman grabbing a lifeline, banging on the window. "Sir, please save my son. He has a high fever and seizures. I need to get to the hospital urgently. Please, I'll pay you whatever you want." The driver saw the pale child in her arms and nodded without hesitation. "Hop in, quick. Don't worry about the money right now." The old truck roared, cutting through the curtain of rain toward Providence General Hospital. Inside the cab, which smelled faintly of motor oil and peppermint, Amara hugged Zion tight, shivering uncontrollably from cold and fear. In her mind, Darius's smiling face next to the birthday candles flickered, intertwined with Zion's ragged breaths. A seed of hatred, watered by the cold rain and brutal betrayal, began to sprout in the heart that had once loved him completely. Providence General was brightly lit, a stark contrast to the darkness and storm outside. The sharp smell of antiseptic made Amara dizzy. She ran into the ER with Zion, her wet hair plastered to her face, water dripping onto the polished floor. "Doctor, where is a doctor? Please, save my son!" Her desperate screams attracted the attention of the entire medical staff on duty. A nurse quickly pushed a gurney over. The attending physician rapidly assessed Zion's condition. His face turned grave immediately. The doors to the trauma room slammed shut in front of Amara, separating her from her precious boy. The red light above the door illuminated, blinding and painful. A middle-aged nurse came out, handing Amara a stack of paperwork. Her voice was reproving. "Why did you wait until his fever was this high to bring him in? A little later, and it could have caused permanent brain damage. He has acute pneumonia. Where is the father? How could he let you carry the child in the rain alone like this?" The nurse's questions were like salt rubbed into Amara's wounds. Where was the father? She sketched a bitter, twisted smile. "His father is busy being a hero at another woman's birthday party. My husband is dead." Amara pronounced the words coldly, then scribbled her signature on the consent form. The nurse looked at the woman's pathetic appearance, but seeing the sharp, cold fire in her eyes, she didn't dare ask more questions and hurried back inside with the file. The hospital corridor was deserted. Cold air seeped through the automatic doors, chilling Amara to the bone. Only now did she feel the biting cold. Her wet clothes clung to her skin, and her scraped knee was still oozing blood. But she didn't care. She sank onto a cold metal bench, eyes fixed on the ER door. Time passed, every second heavy as lead. 1 hour, then 2. To keep from collapsing, Amara pulled out her phone. The screen was cracked in one corner where she had dropped it, but it still worked. She intended to message Malik Jeffries, her private attorney and close friend, to ask him to prepare some documents. But as if guided by a malicious force, her fingers slipped onto a social media app. Right at the top of her feed, a trending post updated 15 minutes ago caught her eye. It was from Kiara Vance's secondary account, an account Kiara thought Amara didn't know about, but one Amara had been aware of for a long time. The photo was taken in a luxurious presidential suite at the St. Regis. In the soft, flickering candlelight, a woman's slender, pale hand held a man's large hand. On the man's wrist was a limited edition Patek Philippe Grand Complications 5270. Amara stared at the watch. Every intricate detail of its engraved dial was etched into her memory. She had personally commissioned it from Switzerland 3 months ago, using her own personal savings as a gift for Darius upon his promotion to CEO. When he received the gift, he had hugged her, swearing he would cherish it as he cherished her love. Yet now, that same watch appeared in his mistress's gloating photo on the very night his son lay in an emergency room. The caption was short but provocative. "Thank you, my man. Despite the storm, you came to me and gave me the warmest birthday. Love you, DT." Darius Thorne hadn't just come. He had brought humiliation for his wife and son as a gift for her. Amara scrolled down to the comments. Some of Kiara's friends were cooing. "Wow, what a watch. I heard that cost as much as a condo. Your man spoils you, Kiara." Kiara replied with a heart emoji and the words, "He said I deserve the best and that old things at home get thrown out sooner or later." Old things at home. Amara let out a soft, eerie laugh that echoed in the silent hallway. So, in his eyes, she and Zion were just old, cumbersome objects waiting to be discarded. She had sacrificed everything for Darius. Born the heiress to the immense Sterling Industries fortune, she had hidden her identity and defied her father to marry him. A man from humble beginnings, but full of ambition. She had used her family's hidden connections to pave the way for him, quietly handling business problems and even accepting a supporting role, taking care of his family so he could focus on his career. She had believed her sacrifices would earn her a happy home. But she was wrong. Her sacrifices had only fed his greed and arrogance. He thought his success was entirely his own, and she, his humble wife, was no longer worthy of his status. A hot tear fell onto her phone screen, blurring Kiara's smug face in the profile picture. But it was the last tear. Amara wiped her face. Her eyes shifted from pain to a glacial resolve. She took a screenshot of the post and saved it to a hidden folder. Then she opened her contacts and found a number she hadn't called in 5 years. Mr. Langston Sterling, her father. Just then, the light above the ER turned off. The door opened, and the doctor came out looking tired but slightly relieved. "Family of Zion Thorne?" Amara jumped up. Her numb legs almost gave out. "That's me. How is my son, doctor?" The doctor nodded slightly. "Fortunately, you brought him just in time. The boy had acute pneumonia complicated by the high fever and seizures. We've lowered his fever and stabilized his condition. He's out of immediate danger, but he needs to be in the ICU for at least 24 hours for observation. His lungs are very weak, so we must be extremely cautious." Amara let out a long, trembling sigh, feeling as if a 2-ton weight had been lifted from her chest. "Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much." As she watched the gurney carrying Zion to the recovery ward, seeing her son's small, pale face covered in medical tubes, Amara's heart ached, but her mind was remarkably clear. She could not allow her son to continue living in this toxic environment. She could not allow an irresponsible father and a manipulative mistress to hurt Zion ever again. Amara turned and walked to a secluded corner of the hallway. She dialed her father's number. He answered almost immediately, his dignified voice tinged with concern. "Amara, why are you calling so late? Did that scoundrel Thorne hurt you again?" Hearing her father's warm voice, the man she had turned her back on to chase a blind love, Amara's nose stung. She took a deep breath, suppressing her emotions, and pronounced every word clearly. "Daddy, I was wrong. I want to come home." There was a second of silence on the other end, then a determined voice spoke. "Good. I've waited 5 years to hear you say that. Baby girl, where are you? I'm sending someone to pick you up immediately. I'm at Providence General. Zion is sick. Daddy, I need the best legal team from Sterling Industries, and I need you to help me prepare asset freezing procedures. I want a divorce." "That's my girl. A Sterling has to be decisive. I'll come myself. As for that scoundrel, I'll make him regret the day he was born." As she hung up, Amara leaned against the wall, staring out the window. The rain hadn't stopped, but a faint light was beginning to break in the eastern sky. Tonight was the last night she would cry for Darius. Tomorrow, when the sun rose, the weak Amara of the past would be gone. The person returning to that mansion would be Ms. Sterling of Sterling Industries, the one who would reclaim everything, principal and interest, from those who had trampled on her love and self-respect. Amara went back to Zion's room, watching him sleep deeply. She kissed his forehead gently and whispered, "Sleep well, Zion. When you wake up, Mama will give you a new world, one without storms, only warm sunshine." She asked the nurse to watch her son for a moment. Then, she quietly left the hospital and hailed a taxi. She needed to go home to clean out the remnants of the past before her dear husband returned. The faint light of dawn filtered through the curtains of the hospital room, illuminating Amara's haggard face. After a sleepless night watching Zion's every breath, her eyes were bloodshot. Yet strangely, there was no longer the usual sadness or weakness in her gaze. The extreme fear of the previous night had solidified into a block of cold, sharp ice embedded deep in the young mother's heart. Zion's fever had broken. His breathing was more regular, though his face was still pale, and his small hand bore the bruised mark of an IV needle. Amara felt her heart turning to cold ash. For the past 5 years, what had she lived for? For a foolish, youthful love? For a man who valued his ego more than the lives of his wife and child? A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It opened, and a dignified, middle-aged man with silver-flecked hair entered, his eyes as sharp as an eagle's. Behind him were 2 tall bodyguards and Malik Jeffries, the chief legal counsel for Sterling Industries. It was her father, Chairman Langston Sterling. Amara stood up. Her numb legs made her sway. Langston quickly stepped forward to support his daughter, his eyes scanning her fragile appearance, then landing on his grandson in the hospital bed. Pained beyond words, Amara softly called out, "Daddy?" With a cracking voice, Langston patted her shoulder. His voice was deep, carrying undeniable authority. "No need to speak. I know everything. The security footage from the mansion and the hospital has been retrieved. The Sterling family will never allow one of our own to suffer such injustice." Malik Jeffries stepped forward, placing a stack of documents on the table. His eyes were full of sympathy and determination as he looked at Amara. "All procedures have been prepared according to the chairman's wishes. You just need to nod, and the plan activates immediately." Amara looked at Malik, her childhood friend who had silently supported her over the years. She picked up the file, looking at the clear black and white text: divorce papers, asset division agreement, investment freeze order. She looked at her son once more. The image of Darius laughing happily with his mistress while her son was at death's door reappeared, vivid as a slow-motion movie. Her last hesitation vanished. Amara turned to Malik. "Proceed immediately." Then she turned to her father. "I'll return to the Sterling estate, but first I need to make a trip back to the Thorne mansion. I have to claim what belongs to me and Zion, and leave Darius what he deserves." Langston Sterling nodded with satisfaction. "Maria and 2 bodyguards will accompany you. Zion stays here. I've already mobilized the best medical team from abroad for a consultation. No one takes the boy without my order." Amara bent down and kissed her son's forehead, whispering an apology. Then she turned resolutely and walked out of the room. Her back was straight, exuding the proud aura of a Sterling heiress she had deliberately hidden for years to be a good wife. The sleek black limousine of Sterling Industries carried her back to the Thorne mansion. The rain had stopped, but the house still felt damp and cold. The housekeeper hadn't returned yet. The vast house was eerily silent. Amara walked into the master bedroom, once the cozy haven she had meticulously cared for. Darius's clothes were still scattered on the bed, left haphazardly before he went to his meeting. The familiar scent of his cologne now made her nauseous. She opened the closet, unhesitatingly pushing aside the dazzling evening gowns Darius had bought for her to wear at social events to maintain his image. She took only her simple clothes, Zion's favorite toys, and most importantly, the photo album chronicling her son's growth. Maria, the Sterling family's trusted housekeeper, quickly helped her pack. As she folded the clothes, she wiped away tears secretly, saying, "Miss Amara, you've suffered enough. This time, back home, the master and mistress will make it up to you." Amara smiled faintly, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I haven't suffered, Maria. Every foolish mistake has a price, and this time I paid with 5 years of my youth. A bit expensive, but worth it to wake up." In less than an hour, all of Amara and Zion's personal belongings were neatly packed. The room felt strangely empty. Amara walked to the vanity and took off her wedding ring, the diamond ring with which Darius had once knelt and proposed, swearing eternal love. Now it lay starkly on the cold marble surface. She pulled out the signed divorce papers, her signature firm and decisive, right next to the ring. Amara thought to herself, Darius thought he was a phoenix rising from the ashes. No, he was just a lucky sparrow that landed on a high branch. Today, that branch has snapped. Amara picked up her purse and walked out the door without a single glance back. The door of the mansion slammed shut behind her, closing a tearful chapter of her life and opening a ruthless war. Leaving the Thorne mansion, Amara sat in the gleaming black limousine. The interior was quiet and luxurious, completely separated from the city bustle. She pulled out her phone and dialed a special encrypted number. This was the private banking hotline reserved for top-tier investors. Someone answered immediately. The voice of Mr. Thompson, the bank manager, was respectful and deferential. "It is an honor to hear from you, Ms. Sterling. Chairman Sterling briefly informed us of the situation, and we are awaiting your orders." Amara leaned back in the leather seat, her eyes watching the skyscrapers glide past the window. Her voice was cold and sharp as a surgeon's scalpel. "Activate the spousal risk clause in the investment trust agreement between Citadel Capital and Thorne Enterprises." Manager Thompson asked cautiously, "Which level do you wish to apply?" Amara's lips curled into a mocking smile. Every word she spoke carried immense weight. Level 1. A complete freeze. Lock all corporate accounts of Thorne Enterprises, Darius Thorne's personal accounts, and all supplementary credit cards he has issued. Demand immediate recall of preferential short-term loans, requiring early repayment due to a violation of the CEO ethics clause. Manager Thompson stated with concern, "Doing so will immediately paralyze Thorne Enterprises. Their cash flow is already very weak. If funding is cut now, bankruptcy will be a matter of days." Amara interrupted, her voice unwavering. "That is precisely what I want. I want him to wake up tomorrow morning without a penny in his pocket, unable to use his cards, and his company unable to pay salaries. I want him to experience the feeling of helplessness as his world crumbles before his eyes." "Understood. We will implement it immediately. The system will send asset freeze confirmation notifications to Darius Thorne's address in 30 minutes. Amara hung up, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. Many people didn't know that Thorne Enterprises' rapid rise over the last 5 years wasn't due to Darius's exceptional business talent, but the massive capital injection from Citadel Capital, a private equity fund established by Amara herself using her mother's inheritance. She had quietly pumped lifeblood into her husband's company, hiding her identity to protect his fragile male ego. But that ego had been used by him to support his mistress, to trample on her and their son. So she would reclaim everything. Her money, even if she threw it into the ocean, it should at least make a splash, not be enjoyed by that cheating couple. The car stopped in front of the city's most modern office building. Malik Jeffries was already waiting there. He handed her another stack of documents. "These are the asset freeze confirmations from the court and the bank. Hard copies have been delivered by courier to the Thorne mansion, stuck directly on the refrigerator door as you requested." Amara took the confirmation paper with the red stamps from the bank and court. She remembered Darius's habit. Every time he came home, drunk or sober, the first thing he did was open the fridge for a drink. This paper would be an excellent appetizer for him tomorrow morning. Amara continued, her eyes gleaming dangerously. "What about the luxury apartment Kiara Vance is living in? Whose name is it in?" Malik adjusted his glasses, a knowing smile on his face. "It's in Darius Thorne's name, but it's community property. Although he bought it secretly with embezzled company funds, legally you own half the property. Furthermore, with the proof of infidelity you provided, the court will rule that the majority of assets belong to you and Zion." Amara nodded with satisfaction. Notify the building management to cut the power and water and deactivate the key cards. State that the owner requests the unit be sealed for dispute resolution. I want to see how Kiara survives on the 25th floor without electricity, water, or an elevator." Malik looked at her with admiration. "You've really changed." Amara looked him directly in the eyes. Her voice deepened. "It's not a change, Malik. I'm reclaiming what is rightfully mine. My son almost died because of his depravity. I won't let anyone hurt him again. From now on, the weak Amara is dead. Only Amara Sterling remains." She walked into the elevator, her fitted black dress exuding cold power. The financial war had officially begun. She didn't just want Darius Thorne to divorce her. She wanted him to leave with nothing but the clothes on his back, buried in debt, so he would understand that the price of betrayal was far higher than he could ever imagine. The next morning, the scorching sun shone over Atlanta, but it couldn't dispel the chill of the previous night's storm. A taxi pulled up to the gate of the Thorne mansion. Darius Thorne stepped out, his suit rumpled, tie loosened, and a distinctive crimson lipstick mark on the collar of his white shirt. He stretched and yawned, his head still buzzing from the alcohol and the sweet afterglow of the passionate birthday night with Kiara. Last night was wonderful. Kiara had been compliant and attentive, unlike Amara at home, who only complained about Zion's illnesses and household expenses. Darius muttered about having to go back and listen to more lectures. Then he groped for his wallet to pay the taxi. He intended to pull out his powerful black credit card for a flashy payment, but reconsidered, thinking the taxi's card reader might be faulty. Instead, he pulled out a few $20 bills, threw them at the driver, and turned to enter. The heavy gate creaked open, revealing a silent courtyard. Darius frowned. Usually, at this hour, Amara would be watering the flowers, or at least the sound of a child playing would be audible. Why was it so quiet today? She must be tired from Zion's sickness last night and still sleeping. He unlocked the front door with his fingerprint and walked in. "Amara!" he shouted, his voice tinged with the imperiousness of a husband expecting to be served. No answer. The large house was steeped in an eerie silence. There was no smell of the breakfast Amara usually cooked, no sound of slippers shuffling to greet him. The living room was tidy, so clean it felt cold, as if no one lived there. Darius frowned. A sense of unease gripped his heart. He climbed the stairs and pushed open the master bedroom door. Where is she? Is she hiding from me? And how is Zion? The room was empty. The bed was cold and untouched. The closet doors were wide open, revealing empty shelves. All of Amara's clothes were gone. The vanity was bare. No lotions, no lipsticks. He stood frozen for a few seconds, then let out a mocking laugh. "Playing her old trick of running back to her parents to threaten me," he muttered. "Women, always making a fuss over nothing. If you want to leave, go ahead. Let's see how many days it takes for you to come back crying." Darius didn't bother anymore. His throat felt parched from the alcohol. He went down to the kitchen, intending to drink a glass of cold water to clear his head and then go back to sleep. He opened the refrigerator. As the door swung open, a white paper slapped him in the face, carefully stuck with a magnet in the most visible spot. The title read clearly, "Notice of Asset Freeze and Debt Demand." Darius squinted to read it. At first he smirked, thinking it was a childish prank by Amara. But when he read the line, "All accounts of Mr. Darius Thorne have been frozen at the request of the primary creditor," the smile on his face froze. He ripped the paper off, crumpling it in his hand. "What the hell is this?" He ran to the living room, to the coffee table where he usually sat. On the table, divorce papers lay starkly next to his diamond ring. In the divorce filing, the plaintiff was Amara Sterling, and the reason was clearly stated: adultery, abandonment of marital duties, abandonment of a child in critical condition. Darius picked up the papers, his hands starting to shake. Not from fear of losing his wife, but from a feeling of humiliation. His weak, housewife spouse who clung to him all year round dared to initiate a divorce. Just then, his phone vibrated wildly in his pocket. It was a text from the bank. A series of notifications flooded the screen. Checking account locked. Available balance, $0. Platinum credit card deactivated. Maybach loan overdue, requiring immediate payment. Otherwise, asset seizure initiated. A barrage of messages, like bombs exploding, plunged Darius into panic. He frantically dialed Amara's number, but only received the message. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. He threw his phone onto the sofa, roaring like a wounded beast. Amara, you dare do this to me! He didn't believe Amara had the guts or ability to do this. It must be her family inciting her, a family of small-time merchants daring to go against the CEO of Thorn Enterprises. He'd teach them a lesson. But first, he needed money. He remembered there was some cash and gold in the safe in his study. He ran to the study, spinning the dial on the safe. A click echoed, and the safe swung open. Empty. Inside, only a yellow sticky note remained with Amara's familiar handwriting. The money used to buy this gold was from my inheritance. I'm taking it back. The safe is yours. You can store air in it. Blood rushed to his head. Darius stumbled, grabbing the edge of the desk to steady himself. He realized the situation was far more serious than he had imagined. This empty house wasn't a temporary tantrum. It was a calculated punishment. Unable to locate Amara, unable to get money, Darius, in his extreme panic and anger, decided to drive to the company. He had to check the real financial situation. He didn't believe a housewife like Amara could affect Thorn Enterprises. He ran to the garage, but then remembered both cars were gone. The Maybach, he didn't know where the chauffeur had taken it. In fact, it had been repossessed by the bank first thing in the morning. His wife's Porsche was nowhere to be found. He cursed and had to run to the main road for a taxi. Arriving at the headquarters of Thorn Enterprises, he was met with unprecedented chaos. Employees swirled around, arguing anxiously, their faces worried. As soon as Darius walked in, the CFO ran out, her face pale. She informed him that this morning the bank had announced a freeze on all company accounts. Material suppliers were also calling to cancel contracts. Hearing the company couldn't pay, the stock price was plummeting. Darius roared at her to shut up. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. "Who is spreading such rumors? I'll sue them!" He demanded she call the bank manager immediately. The CFO trembled. "I already called, but they said it was an order from Citadel Capital, the company's largest shareholder. They activated the risk clause. They asked if you had offended them." Darius froze. Citadel Capital. That was the lifeblood of Thorn Enterprises for the past 5 years. He had never met the director of this fund. Everything was handled through legal representatives. Why were they turning against him now? A sudden thought crossed his mind. Zion. Last night, Amara said Zion had a high fever and seizures. Could that be why she was making such a fuss, inciting her family to take action? He needed to find Amara immediately and make her stop this madness. Darius tried to reassure the employees, saying he would solve this. "Everyone keep working as normal," he said. Then he turned and ran out of the company. He went to Providence General. After all, he was Zion's father. He had a right to visit his son. Besides, he believed that as soon as he appeared, with a few words of comfort and the excuse of being busy with work, Amara would soften like always. Women were always sentimental when it came to their children. At the pediatric reception desk, Darius, panting, asked for Zion Thorne's room. The nurse checked her computer, then looked at him with a strange gaze. She said that Zion, the boy with high fever and seizures from last night, had been discharged and transferred. Darius asked angrily where they had moved him. The nurse replied that the records indicated a transfer to the Sterling family wing and questioned why he, as the child's father, didn't know. Darius was stunned. The Sterling family wing? That was the most exclusive VIP area of the hospital, reserved only for Sterling family members and high-ranking officials. No amount of money could get you in without a connection. Why was his son there? Could it be Amara's family? A chilling premonition hit him. He had never really cared about his wife's background. He only knew her father was a businessman from out of town. He had always thought they were just an elderly couple saving up for their daughter who married a rich man. Darius ran to the VIP zone, but as soon as he reached the security gate, 2 tall bodyguards in black suits and sunglasses stopped him. They stated coldly, "Private area, no unauthorized entry." Darius tried to push past, shouting that he was Zion Thorne's father and he was there to see his son. One of the bodyguards shoved him back coldly, sending him stumbling to the floor. "Your name is not on the visitor list. Miss Sterling explicitly instructed that you and any dogs are not allowed entry." Darius, enraged, asked who he dared call a dog and who Miss Sterling was. It was Amara. What right did she have to block him? The bodyguard looked at him with contempt, as if looking at a pile of trash. "Go look in a mirror. Miss Sterling is the sole heiress of Chairman Langston Sterling of Sterling Industries. You lived with her for 5 years and didn't know you were sitting on a gold mine? What a fool!" The bodyguard's words hit Darius like a lightning bolt. Langston Sterling, Sterling Industries, one of the largest financial conglomerates in the country. Amara was Langston Sterling's daughter. Everything spun before Darius's eyes. He remembered the times Amara had offered him astute business advice that he had dismissed with disdain, the extravagant gifts his in-laws sent, which he had scorned, and Citadel Capital. He collapsed onto the floor, his face drained of color. He hadn't just lost his wife and son, he just realized he had personally shredded his winning lottery ticket. His abandonment last night had turned into a death sentence for his future, but his arrogant and greedy nature wouldn't let him accept defeat so easily. He stumbled up, eyes bloodshot. "She tricked me! She dared to hide this from me!" he shouted. "You think I'm scared just because you're a Sterling heiress? My son carries the name Thorne. I'll sue for custody." He turned and stormed off, already plotting another dirty scheme. Unaware that behind the soundproof glass door of the VIP lounge on the 5th floor, Amara was watching him. A glass of red wine in her hand, her eyes cold as ice. Watching him like a dying ant, she took a small sip of wine and whispered, "The game has just begun. Darius Thorne." The headquarters of Sterling Industries towered in the heart of Atlanta's financial district, a skyscraper reflecting the brilliant sunlight off its glass panels. This was a symbol of economic power every businessman yearned to enter. In the executive conference room on the 68th floor, a somber atmosphere prevailed. The elderly major shareholders who had fought alongside Chairman Langston Sterling for decades sat in silence. Today, the chairman had announced a significant change in the CEO position. The heavy wooden door opened slowly. The crisp, authoritative click of high heels on the marble floor echoed. Amara Sterling walked in. If Darius Thorne were present, he surely wouldn't recognize the woman before him. Gone was the housewife with the messy bun and cotton pajamas. Today, Amara wore an exquisitely tailored ivory pantsuit that accentuated her slender figure. Her long hair was slightly waved, falling naturally down her back. Her makeup was light but sharp, especially her eyes, which exuded a cold indifference. She walked to the head of the table, a position usually reserved for her father, and sat down. Malik Jeffries followed closely, placing a stack of documents in front of her. Amara scanned the conference room. Her clear voice conveyed invisible pressure. She introduced herself as Amara Sterling, who would assume the role of CEO of Sterling Industries, authorized by the chairman. The shareholders exchanged glances, some surprised, others skeptical, but seeing Malik's nod of confirmation and her chillingly calm demeanor, they all nodded silently in welcome. The meeting proceeded quickly. Amara made decisive policy decisions, particularly to withdraw investments from high-risk projects, among which Thorne Enterprises was marked conspicuously in red. At the end of the meeting, Amara returned to the CEO's office. She stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, looking at the tiny cars below. The feeling of holding power in her hands was vastly different from holding a ladle in a small kitchen. For 5 years, she had deliberately clipped her own wings to stay in a cage. Now, it was time for the phoenix to be reborn. Malik knocked and entered, a tablet in his hand. "Darius Thorne is in the reception lobby screaming to meet with representatives of Citadel Capital and the management of Sterling Industries. He claims there's a misunderstanding and wants to renegotiate." Amara turned, a mocking smile on her lips. She asked Malik, "Does he still not know my identity?" Malik shook his head, a slight chuckle escaping him. "He still thinks Sterling Industries is a distant partner and Citadel Capital a mysterious benefactor. He could never imagine his humble housewife holds the lifeblood of his company." Amara walked to her desk. "Let him wait. Tell the receptionist the CEO is busy and cannot receive guests without an appointment." In the grand lobby on the first floor, Darius Thorne paced like a trapped animal. Sweat ran down his back. He constantly checked his watch, then looked at the executive elevator with pleading eyes. The beautiful receptionist looked at him apologetically, but kept a professional smile, announcing the CEO was in a meeting and inviting Mr. Thorne to wait. Darius suppressed his anger, forcing a smile. "I have an urgent matter regarding a multi-million-dollar project." He waited 3 long hours, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. His stomach growled. Sterling Industries employees passed by, looking at him with curiosity, whispering, making him feel like thousands of needles were pricking his ego. He, Darius Thorne, CEO of Thorne Enterprises, once hailed wherever he went, was now abandoned in the lobby like a delivery boy. Just as Darius was about to give up, the VIP elevator doors opened. A group of people walked out, led by a radiant woman surrounded by assistants. Darius squinted. That figure, that walk, it felt so familiar. He was about to lunge forward, but 2 large bodyguards quickly stepped in, blocking him like steel walls. "Excuse me, CEO. I'm Darius Thorne from Thorne Enterprises," he shouted. The woman didn't stop, didn't even glance at him. She walked straight to the Rolls-Royce waiting outside. Her suit jacket fluttered gently in the wind, leaving behind a cold back and a faint scent of luxury perfume, a scent neither Kiara nor any woman he had ever met could possess. Darius stood frozen, murmuring, "Impossible." That silhouette looked so much like Amara, but it couldn't be her. How could Amara have such regal bearing? How could Amara be riding in a Rolls-Royce? He must be seeing things. He stumbled out of the Sterling Industries building, the scorching midday sun hitting his face, making him dizzy. He didn't know that this mistaken encounter was just the prelude to a series of humiliations he was about to endure. Darius Thorne's office at Thorne Enterprises was chaos. Phones rang incessantly, employees ran back and forth, and the printer spewed endless cancellation notices. Darius slumped in his chair, pulling his hair. In just 8 hours, the empire he had built over 5 years had crumbled. Accounts were frozen, partners had turned their backs, and employees were resigning en masse. The office door burst open. Kiara Vance walked in, her face radiant, a fashion magazine in hand. She was still oblivious to the financial storm. Thinking Darius could salvage the situation, Kiara swayed over, sat on Darius's lap, and wrapped her arms around his neck. She drawled, "Last night was so much fun, but I saw a new Hermes bag in a magazine. It's gorgeous. Buy it for me, baby, as a late birthday present." Darius, already furious, exploded. He shoved her violently, sending her stumbling. "Are you crazy?" he roared. "The company is on the brink of bankruptcy. Where am I going to get money for a damn bag?" Kiara froze. Her large eyes filled with tears. Her innocent expression vanished, replaced by a calculating glint. She stood up, her voice suddenly cold. "The company is really bankrupt? Didn't you say you were a business genius?" Darius loosened his tie with rage. "This time is different. Amara, that crazy woman conspired with outsiders to freeze my assets. I need cash, desperately." He turned to Kiara, his voice softening slightly. "Give me back the jewelry and credit cards I gave you. I need to sell them. When this crisis passes, I'll buy them back for you 10 times over." Kiara's face hardened. She stepped back, crossing her arms, a sneer on her lips. "You're funny," she mocked. "What is given is not taken back. That's payment for my youth spent with you. Now you want to take the clothes off my back?" Darius couldn't believe his ears. Was this the sweet, understanding Kiara? He glared at her, pointing a finger. "Ungrateful wretch, you clung to me when I was rich, and now that I'm broke, you turn your back on me?" The two began a loud argument. Vulgar insults flew across the poorly soundproofed office. Just as the argument reached its peak, the company's internal PA system suddenly crackled. "Hello? Do you have any idea what time it is? A fever again? I'm in a crucial meeting. Darius, baby, come blow out the candles." "Sure, coming right now, babe. Happy birthday." All employees stopped what they were doing. The space fell into absolute silence, save for the recording echoing. It was the phone call between Darius and Amara. Darius and Kiara in the office froze. His own voice, Kiara's cooing voice, his cruel abandonment of his sick son, all laid bare. Darius's face turned purple. He lunged to turn off the speakers, but couldn't. Outside, the employees' gazes were filled with absolute contempt. So the all-night meeting was him fooling around. His son was having seizures, and he was busy blowing out candles for his mistress. How could a man like that lead anyone? Kiara's face was bloodless. She knew her reputation was ruined. She grabbed her purse, covering her face, and ran out, leaving Darius alone in a room full of humiliation. Darius slumped over his desk. He knew this was Amara's gift to him. She didn't just want him to lose money. She wanted him to lose all honor, all respect. She wanted to expose his hypocrisy to the world, and she had done it cruelly and thoroughly. 3 days after Thorne Enterprises plunged into crisis, Darius finally received a meeting from Amara's representative. The location was a luxurious garden cafe. Darius arrived 15 minutes early, wearing his most expensive suit, trying to project confidence. He believed Amara would show up. All he needed was to meet her, use emotional manipulation, and leverage their son to convince her. Exactly at 3 p.m., a black car pulled up. The person who stepped out wasn't Amara, but Malik Jeffries. The lawyer walked into the cafe and sat opposite him without a handshake. Darius snapped, "Where's Amara? I want to speak directly to my wife, not a stranger." Malik calmly ordered a black coffee. Then he looked at Darius. "Amara doesn't want to meet with a man of such moral decay. From this moment on, I am her fully authorized legal representative." Darius slammed his hand on the table, snarling, "Malik, don't push me. Tell her to lift the asset freeze immediately, or don't blame me for being ruthless." Malik chuckled, pulling a thick stack of documents from his briefcase. "Darius Thorne, take a good look," Malik said. "This is a detailed bank statement of your accounts. A total of $1.5 million has been transferred to accounts related to Kiara Vance for a condo, a car, jewelry, designer bags, and luxury trips. Meanwhile, last month you complained about Zion's expensive tuition, making Amara pay for it." Darius glanced at the dense numbers. Cold sweat broke out. Malik continued his attack. "That $1.5 million is community property. Amara demands you return this amount in full before any division. Otherwise, you will face charges of asset dissipation and fraud." Darius stammered, I don't have the money to pay it back." Malik shrugged. "That's your problem. Amara has a message for you. She doesn't need your cheap apologies. She wants you to leave empty-handed, just as you came to her. Even the shirt you're wearing was bought with her money. She's not asking you to strip here. That's the last shred of dignity she's preserving for you." Darius gritted his teeth, shifting to a threatening tone. "If she pushes me, I'll expose everything. I'll let the world know the daughter of Chairman Sterling is a cruel woman who drove her husband to ruin. Let's see if Sterling Industries' stock crashes then." Malik stood up, adjusting his tie, looking at Darius with pity. "Try it. But remember, the Sterling family has enough money and power to make you disappear. Also, Zion has formally changed his last name to Sterling. You have permanently lost your parental rights." With that, Malik turned and walked away, leaving Darius sitting alone, surrounded by the curious stares of other patrons. He clenched his fists, nails digging into his skin. He hated Amara, hated Malik, hated the whole world, but forgot that he had dug his own grave. Cornered, Darius went back to Kiara Vance's condo, where the power and water had been cut, forcing him to climb 25 floors up the stairs. Kiara was curled up in a corner, face streaked with tears. Seeing Darius, she only looked up with resentment. Darius threw his suit jacket on the floor. He told Kiara they were pushing him too hard and he had to fight back. Kiara's eyes lit up. She was a calculating person and knew if she abandoned Darius now, she had nowhere to go. Might as well take a risk. She approached Darius, whispering her plan. She suggested that since Amara was using her family's power, public opinion would always side with the underdog. "Let's play the victims," she urged. Go online with your parents. Cry that your rich daughter-in-law looks down on your poor family. She forbids the grandparents from seeing their grandson and is having an affair with her lawyer. Darius's eyes gleamed. A perfect plan. He immediately called his parents in their rural town, asking them to come to the city that night. The next morning, a live stream aired on a popular social media account. In the video, Darius sat head bowed, looking haggard. Next to him was his mother, Mama Thorne, a countrywoman crying hysterically. Between sobs, she lamented her misfortune, marrying a rich daughter-in-law who treated her in-laws worse than dogs. She didn't tell us when our grandson was sick. She just took him away. My son worked day and night, and just because he forgot his wife's birthday, she kicked him out, froze his assets, and now he has no money to eat. She's also having an affair with that lawyer, plotting to steal my son's company. Darius occasionally chimed in with choked words, saying he only wanted to see his son. Kiara was behind the camera directing the internet trolls she had hired. Thousands of comments began to flood the net. OMG, she's so cruel. Men work so hard, and their wives cheat and steal assets. This kind of woman should be publicly shamed. Boycott Sterling Industries. Justice for this husband. The online wave of fury exploded. Those who didn't know the full story began directing their anger at Amara. The stock price of Sterling Industries fluctuated slightly. Darius watched, a smug smile on his lips. You have money, Amara, but I have public opinion. Let's see how you get out of this storm. At the Sterling estate, Amara sat on the sofa, an iPad in hand, watching the live stream. Her face was calm. Maria, standing next to her, trembled with indignation. They are scoundrels! Miss Amara, let me call someone to deal with them. Amara waved her hand. Let them perform. The better the play, the more tragic the ending. They want to play victims. I'll grant their wish. But first, they have to climb very high, so when they fall, they shatter. She turned to Malik. Prepare a press conference. It's time to release the undeniable proof. The truth about that stormy night and the true face of his crying mother will come to light. Darius Thorne chose the wrong opponent for this media war. The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton, reserved by Sterling Industries for the press conference, was packed. Hundreds of reporters from major media outlets, famous bloggers, and onlookers were present. The story of the rich daughter-in-law oppressing her husband had been the hottest topic on social media for 24 hours. Exactly at 9 a.m., the ballroom doors opened. Camera flashes flickered continuously. Amara Sterling walked out. Contrary to everyone's expectations, Amara appeared surprisingly simple. She wore a modest black long-sleeved dress devoid of any jewelry. Her makeup was light, but couldn't hide the fatigue in her eyes. Beside her was Malik Jeffries and the formidable legal team of Sterling Industries. Amara walked to the podium, bowed humbly, and sat down. Her composure silenced the ballroom. Malik took the microphone, announcing they were forced to speak due to the severe damage to Ms. Sterling's reputation. A reporter stood up immediately. Ms. Sterling, is it true that out of baseless jealousy, you froze your husband's assets and drove him to ruin? Amara looked directly at the camera. She didn't answer but signaled the technician. The giant LED screen behind her lit up. The first image was an enlarged medical record. Patient name, Zion Thorne, age 4. Diagnosis, acute pneumonia, high fever with seizures, respiratory failure. Admission time, 2:15 a.m., October 20th. Condition at admission, critical. The entire ballroom held its breath. Next, the screen split in two. The left side showed security footage from the luxury apartment building where Kiara Vance lived. At 10 p.m. on October 19th, Darius Thorne appeared in a sharp suit holding a large bouquet of roses, his arm around a young woman's waist. Both laughed joyfully. The right side showed footage from a taxi's dashcam at 2 a.m. on October 20th. In the pouring rain, Amara Sterling, alone, held her convulsing son, desperately banging on the taxi window. The brutal contrast made everyone gasp. On one side, a husband immersed in revelry. On the other, a mother fighting to save her son's life. Amara took the microphone, her voice steady. I am not a saint to forgive a man who betrayed me, but I am a mother. The night my son had a 105-degree fever, I called Darius Thorne 12 times. The answer was that he was busy and forbid me to bother him. The screen then showed the call log and a short audio recording of that phone call. Kiara's cooing laughter and Darius's "Happy birthday, babe" echoed in the ballroom. Amara paused, then delivered the final blow. A father who happily cuts a birthday cake for his mistress, while his son has life-threatening seizures, is not worthy of being a father. I froze his assets, not out of jealousy, but to reclaim what belonged to my son. My money. I had the right to give it, and I also had the right to take it back when the other party was no longer worthy. The silent space was broken by scattered applause that quickly turned into thunderous cheers. The live stream of the press conference reached record viewership. Millions of social media comments immediately turned the tide. "OMG, he's an animal." His son was at death's door and he was fooling around with his mistress. Poor Amara Sterling, she's so strong. Boycott Darius Thorne. Justice for Amara and her son. Darius Thorne sat in his office staring at the computer screen, his hands shaking. He knew his victim act had been shattered, exposing the ugliest truth. He had lost miserably and shamefully to the woman he once despised. After the press conference, the boycott of Darius Thorne and Thorne Enterprises spread to reality with alarming speed. At Thorne Enterprises headquarters, a gloomy atmosphere reigned. The customer service department was paralyzed by complaints and cancellations. Darius locked himself in his office, hair disheveled. His cell phone rang endlessly. Creditors, the bank, former partners. He answered a call from the manager of National Bank. The voice on the other end was cold, announcing that due to the CEO's severe credibility collapse, the bank had classified Thorne Enterprises as a high-risk bad debt. They demanded Darius repay the entire $3 million loan within 3 days. Darius slammed the phone down. $3 million. He didn't even have $30,000. The office door burst open. His assistant ran in with more bad news. Thorne Enterprises stock had crashed. The SEC was demanding an explanation. Suppliers had sent trucks to block the warehouse doors. Darius roared in desperation. He still had assets, real estate, land. In a panic, Darius remembered he owned 2 resort villas and a plot of prime land. Their current value must be in the tens of millions. If he could sell a portion, he would have enough cash. He hurriedly called a real estate agent, offering a price 30% below market value. The agent called back 15 minutes later. "I'm sorry, the transaction cannot be completed. Checking the notary system, all these properties are jointly owned by Mr. Darius Thorne and Ms. Amara Sterling. Selling requires her signed consent absolutely." Darius felt like he had been struck by lightning. He remembered years ago when he bought these assets. Amara had handled the paperwork. He had just signed without realizing she had skillfully included her name as co-owner. From the beginning, Amara had silently built a protective fence. Now, to get money, he had to beg Amara. But she would rather let those properties rot than help him. Darius buried his head in his hands. A bitter laugh echoed. He had been stripped of every escape route by the wife he considered useless. Penniless, credit cards blocked, cars repossessed, Darius was forced to take a taxi to find Kiara Vance. He remembered the jewelry, designer bags, and cash he had given her, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars. If he could get it back, he might survive. Kiara was at the luxury apartment Darius had rented for her. When he arrived, the door was wide open. Inside, Kiara was hastily stuffing clothes into suitcases. The room was chaotic. "What are you doing? Where are you going?" he demanded. Kiara turned, her eyes cold. She continued folding an expensive dress. "They cut the power and water here, and reporters are constantly lurking. I can't live like this." Darius grabbed her arm, his voice pleading. "Give me back the diamond jewelry set and the cash. I need money desperately." Kiara shook off his arm violently, standing up and crossing her arms, looking at him with overt contempt. "Are you dreaming? That money is for my services to you. Once a gift is given, you can't take it back. You're such a pathetic man, claiming things back from your ex-girlfriend." Darius couldn't believe his ears. "Ex-girlfriend? What do you mean? You're leaving me?" Kiara smirked. Wake up, Darius. What do you have now? Your company is bankrupt. You're buried in debt. Your reputation is in the gutter. You think I loved you for your beer belly? I loved your money. Now you're just a broke bum. Why should I bury my life with you? Darius shook with rage. He remembered her sweet words that she loved him for who he was. It was all a fake. He roared, lunging to grab her bag. "Ungrateful wretch!" Kiara screamed obscenities, scratching his face. They wrestled, falling onto a pile of clothes. In the struggle, Kiara's suitcase popped open, spilling out a passport and a plane ticket. The accompanying passenger name wasn't just hers, but another man's. A real estate tycoon Darius had once met. Darius picked up the ticket, hands shaking. "How long have you been cheating on me?" Kiara fixed her messy hair and sneered. "Not long, since your company started showing signs of cash flow problems. A smart person knows how to find an escape route, right? Who is as stupid as Amara to sacrifice her youth and money for a worthless man? Although Amara was pretty smart, wasn't she? She knew to kick you out right when you had nothing." The mention of Amara was the final stab. He compared the two women, one who gave him everything but he betrayed, the other who only knew how to extort money, but he worshipped. Darius dropped his arms, stumbling back. He felt dirty. He turned and walked away, leaving behind Kiara's shrill laughter. After leaving Kiara, Darius wandered the streets, going to his parents' house. His mother, seeing her son in such a pathetic state, instead of comforting him, screamed that it was all Amara's fault. "She stole all your assets. She stole my grandson. She's so rich she'll surely brainwash the boy to forget his blood." Mama Thorne urged Darius. "If she won't let you see him, go to his school and pick him up. You're his father. Who would dare stop you? Just bring the boy here and we'll have a hostage to negotiate with Amara. She loves that kid so much, she'll surely cough up a big sum of money." In his desperation, Darius found logic in his mother's words. He thought Zion was his son. He had a right to take him anywhere. The next morning, Darius, wearing a borrowed helmet, rode an old scooter, prowling around the new international preschool Amara had transferred Zion to. At dismissal time, he hid behind a large oak tree. There, Zion was walking out with his teacher. No Amara or bodyguards. Darius lunged, grabbing Zion's hand and pulling him. Zion screamed in terror. The young teacher, startled, ran after them. "Who are you? Let go of the child! I'm calling security!" Darius pulled off his mask, revealing his haggard face. "I'm his father!" he roared. "What's wrong with a father picking up his son?" Zion, seeing his father, didn't feel relieved but cowered in fear. He screamed, struggling to escape Darius's grip. Darius's violent actions attracted the attention of surrounding parents. They began gathering, whispering. Many recognized him as the notorious bad father from social media. They pulled out their phones to record. "OMG! Is that Darius Thorne? He's trying to kidnap his own son. Look how scared the boy is." Darius's anger exploded. He yelled at Zion to shut up and dragged the boy forcibly, causing Zion to trip and scrape his knee. Just then, 2 sleek black Cadillacs sped up, braking sharply. 4 large bodyguards jumped out, quickly subduing Darius, twisting his arms behind his back. Amara stepped out of the second car, running to hug Zion, who was sobbing hysterically, checking his injuries. Seeing his bleeding knee and terrified face, an unprecedented anger erupted in Amara's eyes. She stood up, walking toward Darius. Without a word, she raised her hand and delivered a ringing slap across his face. The slap carried all the indignation of a mother protecting her child. Amara snarled, "Darius Thorne, you have crossed my last line. You want to see your son? Fine. Next time we'll meet in court, and I'll show you the price of kidnapping and disturbing public order." Police sirens wailed in the distance. Darius was handcuffed and shoved into the squad car amidst the jeers of the gathered parents. The image of him being arrested while his son watched in extreme fear marked the end of his last shred of dignity. The plan not only failed miserably, but also pushed him toward prison. The sky above Atlanta was gray, much like Darius Thorne's mood as he walked through the doors of the district courthouse. He wore an old, frayed suit. Beside him was a third-rate lawyer. The preliminary hearing for the divorce case between plaintiff Amara Sterling and defendant Darius Thorne began officially. On the other side, Amara sat upright. Her serene, cold demeanor radiated power. She didn't look at Darius once. Malik Jeffries sat beside her, calm and sharp. Darius's lawyer stood up, his voice trembling, presenting his client's demands. The defendant agrees to the divorce but requests full custody of his son Zion Thorne and a 50% division of existing assets. Darius sat there, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. He thought no matter how powerful Amara was, the law was the law. Assets acquired during marriage had to be divided equally. The judge turned to the plaintiff. Malik Jeffries stood up calmly. "Your Honor," he said, "before discussing asset division, I would like to present a crucial piece of evidence. It is a prenuptial agreement signed between Ms. Amara Sterling and Mr. Darius Thorne on May 15th, 5 years ago, one day before their marriage registration." Hearing this, Darius laughed. "Malik, are you crazy? I never signed any such agreement. It must be forged." Malik smirked slightly. He requested the judge show Darius the original document. When Darius held the contract, seeing his own elaborate signature at the bottom, his face went pale. A hazy memory from 5 years ago resurfaced. It was his bachelor party the night before his wedding. He had been dead drunk. Amara had given him a stack of papers saying they were urgent documents for the marriage license requiring his signature. He had signed blindly. It turned out Darius had unknowingly signed his own financial death warrant. The contract clearly stated that all assets created or inherited by Amara before and during the marriage were her separate property. The shares of Thorne Enterprises were investment capital from Citadel Capital. Darius Thorne was merely a salaried operator. The judge banged the gavel, declaring the contract legal and valid. Darius collapsed completely. As for child custody, Malik presented irrefutable evidence. Zion's medical records, the video of Darius abandoning his sick son, and the police report on his attempted kidnapping. The judge delivered the final verdict: divorce granted. Amara Sterling obtained full custody of her son. Darius Thorne was stripped of visitation rights and granted 0 assets. Furthermore, he was ordered to repay the $1.5 million he had embezzled to give to Kiara Vance. The court session concluded. Amara stood up. As she passed Darius, she paused and spoke softly. "That signature was the price of your blind confidence. Years ago, I made you sign it only to protect myself against potential risks. I never imagined I would use it against you. You forced my hand." Darius looked up, following his ex-wife's retreating figure. Tears streamed down his face. He had lost completely. After the trial, Darius Thorne officially became a destitute man drowning in debt. He still believed he had talent. He just lacked capital. He frantically sought opportunities. Hearing that he was desperately looking for investors, Amara smiled coldly. She decided to give him one last gift. A high-level business gala was held. Darius managed to sneak in. He wore a rented suit, clutching a glass of cheap wine, scanning for potential investors. A middle-aged man with a foreign accent, David Jenkins, approached him. He introduced himself as a representative of a new venture capital fund from Europe looking for promising tech projects. He claimed to have heard of Darius and expressed great interest in his idea for an AI-integrated e-commerce ecosystem. Like a drowning man grabbing a burning straw, Darius boasted enthusiastically. David Jenkins nodded, occasionally interrupting with praise. By the end of the party, David Jenkins said his fund was willing to inject $5 million. However, there was a condition. To prove his commitment, Darius had to contribute an initial $1 million to the project's joint account within 3 days. $1 million, a huge sum. But the allure of $5 million and the prospect of returning to fame blinded him. He unequivocally promised he would get the funds. He started searching everywhere. He sold his Patek Philippe watch, which he had hidden. He borrowed from friends. He even knelt and begged former partners. But he still only managed to raise $200,000. Desperate, he remembered a business card from a loan shark. He gambled everything. He thought that in just 3 days, when David Jenkins's money arrived, he would repay the loan immediately. He signed a loan agreement for $800,000 with the loan sharks. With $1 million in hand, Darius immediately transferred it to the account David Jenkins had specified. He called David Jenkins to break the news. The voice on the other end congratulated him and scheduled a contract signing for Monday morning. Darius dreamed of returning to his CEO position, while Amara begged for forgiveness. He didn't know that David Jenkins was just an actor hired by Malik, and the receiving account was a bottomless trap. Monday morning, Darius, in his best suit, arrived at the address of the investment fund office. He asked the receptionist for David Jenkins' office on the 18th floor. She looked at him blankly, saying the 18th floor was vacant. A chill ran down his spine. He hurriedly called David Jenkins. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." He ran up to the 18th floor only to find an empty, dust-covered space. He had been scammed, $1 million, $800,000 of which was loan shark money. Darius collapsed. His desperate scream echoed in the empty hallway. He stumbled back to the sealed Thorn Enterprises building. But arriving at the gate, he saw a group of tattooed, menacing men waiting. The loan sharks. As soon as they saw Darius, they lunged. Punches and kicks rained down on him. He curled up, begging for more time, but only received brutal kicks. They beat him half to death. Then they took his watch, ring, wallet, and even his shoes. Before leaving, the leader spat in his face, giving him 3 more days to find the money, otherwise they would take an arm. Darius lay motionless, then dragged himself up, crawling toward the secret office where he had hidden some foreign currency and antiques in a wall safe. But when the secret door opened, he froze. The safe was open, empty. Standing in front of the safe was Kiara Vance. She had returned using a spare key he had foolishly given her, sneaking in while he was out. Kiara was stuffing the last stack of bills into her purse. Seeing Darius bloody and battered, she showed no fear, only a sneer of contempt. Darius croaked, "Why? Why did you do this to me?" Kiara stepped over him, her sharp high heel pressing into his outstretched hand. She said coldly, "Consider this compensation for my youth. Following you has brought me nothing but infamy. Now I need some capital to start a new life." She advised him, "You should blame yourself for being stupid, trusting women too much." With that, Kiara turned and walked straight out, leaving Darius lying in a pool of blood and betrayal. He watched her disappear. He had lost everything. This was the living hell Amara had given him. 3 days after the beating, Darius was pursued relentlessly by the loan sharks. He had nowhere to go. His parents, hearing of his debts, had locked their doors in fear, disowning their son. In his desperation, his feet unconsciously carried him back to the Sterling mansion. The gates stood imposing in the misty winter rain. Darius stood there looking no different from a beggar, his clothes tattered, face bruised, shivering from cold. He remembered the stormy night Amara had also desperately carried their son out of the house, but at that time he was happy with his mistress. Now the wheel of fortune had turned full circle. Darius knelt before the iron gate. His voice crying Amara's name, crying Zion's name, he begged to see her one last time. The mansion gate opened slowly. A luxurious black Rolls-Royce Phantom drove out slowly. Darius lunged, trying to block the car, begging Amara for forgiveness, begging her to save his life. The car stopped. The rear passenger window rolled down slowly. Darius saw Amara sitting inside wearing a warm cashmere coat. Beside her, Zion slept soundly. Darius sobbed, extending his dirty hand. "I was wrong, Amara. Please give me a chance. I'll be your slave. Save me, please. They're going to kill me." Amara looked at him, her eyes devoid of triumph, anger, or pity. It was the look one gives a stranger. That silence was more terrifying than 1,000 curses. She said not a word. She simply turned and spoke softly to the chauffeur. "Let's go, Otis. Don't let trash dirty our view." The car window rolled up slowly. The luxury car sped through a puddle, splashing dirty water onto Darius, then sped away, leaving him kneeling alone in the cold, biting rain. Darius buried his head on the ground, his sobs mixed with the rain. He understood that the greatest punishment for him wasn't prison or poverty, but having to live and witness his loved ones happy with others, while he himself was erased forever from their lives like a stain that had been thoroughly washed away. In the distance, several tattooed figures approached slowly. Darius closed his eyes, awaiting the tragic ending he had written for his life. After Darius was kicked away from the Sterling Mansion gates, another piece of news surfaced. Darius's mother, Mrs. Carolina Thorne, had been admitted to a psychiatric hospital after witnessing her son being beaten. Amara received a call from the private investigator she had hired. He reported finding an encrypted electronic diary on an old laptop Kiara had left behind. In her office, Amara opened the file. In the diary, Kiara meticulously documented her process of approaching Darius's family. The most chilling revelation was the relationship between Kiara and Mrs. Thorne. The two had met online. Mrs. Thorne had always harbored animosity toward Amara, believing she was too spoiled and offered no help to her son's career. A recorded conversation Kiara saved made Amara's hands shake. "Auntie, I think Amara is quite healthy. Surely she will give you a grandson soon," Kiara had messaged. "Healthy, my foot," Mrs. Thorne replied. "If she has a son, her position will be even more secure. You have to find a way to keep her down." What followed was Kiara's poisonous plan. She had given Mrs. Thorne an unidentified herbal remedy, falsely claiming it was a tonic, but it was actually a cold nature herb causing hormonal imbalances, making conception difficult. Mrs. Thorne had secretly mixed the powder into soups she brought to the city for her daughter-in-law. Amara remembered that 3 years ago her body had suddenly weakened. Her periods were irregular and she couldn't conceive a second child. It turned out her own mother-in-law, together with her husband's mistress, had colluded to poison her. Their goal was to make her feel worthless. Reading the last line where Kiara boasted that the plan had caused Amara to miscarry once without anyone knowing, tears streamed down Amara's face for pity, for the little life that had been taken by its own grandmother. Amara closed her laptop, her eyes turned sharper than ever. If before she only wanted to reclaim her money and dignity, now she wanted them to pay with blood and freedom. This was aggravated assault and attempted murder. She dialed Malik Jeffries. "Malik, take all this evidence to the authorities. I want to prosecute Carolina Thorne and Kiara Vance for assault. I will show no mercy this time." The city police had been busy. After receiving the complaint and evidence from Sterling Industries' legal team, an urgent investigation was launched. Darius, after being denied help by Amara, had been hiding in a dilapidated motel. He lived like a cornered rat, but the law finally caught up. That night, police sirens tore through the quiet motel district. The rotten door of the motel room was kicked down. Darius instinctively tried to flee, but 2 detectives subdued him. The cold click of handcuffs echoed, securing the ex-CEO's wrists. The lead detective read the arrest warrant. Darius Thorne, arrest for grand larceny, corporate tax evasion, and kidnapping. At the same time, at the border crossing, Kiara Vance, hair dyed blonde, was trying to flee the country. She had used the stolen money to buy a fake passport. Approaching the checkpoint booth, her heart pounded. The customs officer scanned her passport, then looked at her with an inquisitive gaze. He signaled, and 2 border security agents stepped forward. Kiara knew something was wrong. She dropped her luggage and turned to run, but the police had already set up an ambush. In less than 2 minutes, Kiara was tackled to the ground. When the police officer pulled out a national arrest warrant for theft, fraud, and assault, Kiara went silent. The 2 traitors finally met at the city police detention center. In the interrogation room, Darius and Kiara were chained to 2 chairs facing each other. The moment they saw each other, they immediately lunged, tearing each other apart verbally. Darius roared, calling Kiara an evil woman who had instigated him, stealing his money. He confessed everything, pushing all blame onto Kiara. Kiara was just as vicious. She laughed maniacally, spilling everything about Mrs. Thorne and her poisoning of Amara, and also accusing Darius of being the mastermind behind the company's tax evasion. The more fiercely they tore each other apart, the clearer the evidence became. 3 months later, the trial took place. The courtroom was packed. Darius Thorne, Kiara Vance, and Mrs. Carolina Thorne stood before the court. Darius was haggard, his eyes dark and lifeless. He wore the black and white striped uniform of the detention center. Kiara was disheveled. Mrs. Thorne rambled, laughing maniacally. Amara Sterling did not attend. She entrusted everything to Malik. The judge read the charges. Darius Thorne, guilty of grand larceny, tax evasion, and kidnapping. Total sentence, 20 years in prison. Kiara Vance, guilty of theft, fraud, and assault. Total sentence, 12 years in prison. Carolina Thorne, guilty of assault. Due to diminished capacity, mandatory indefinite psychiatric hospitalization ordered. Hearing the verdict, Darius collapsed. 20 years. When he got out, he would be a 50-year-old man, homeless, childless, and with no future. His life officially ended here. Kiara cried hysterically. Mrs. Thorne kept laughing maniacally, oblivious that she would spend the rest of her life in a mental institution. Before the defendants were taken away, Malik Jeffries walked over. He held a new certificate up to Darius. It was Zion's reissued birth certificate. In the name section, the name Zion Thorne was gone, replaced by Zion Sterling. And in the father's name section, that line was left blank. Malik told Darius, "This is the last gift Amara sends you. From now on, the boy has no legal or blood relation to the Thorne family. You have no parental rights anymore." Darius stared at the paper, his mouth agape. This pain was more terrible than the 20-year prison sentence. He had lost the last connection to the decent world. He buried his head, tears running onto his cold handcuffs. He regretted it, but it was too late. The door of the police van slammed shut, trapping him in darkness. The state penitentiary housed dangerous criminals. Darius Thorne began his days of confinement here. On his first day, he tasted the cell rules. He was placed in a common cell with hardened criminals. When they found out Darius was in prison for fraud and abandoning his sick son, the cell block leaders looked at him with contempt. In the underworld, there were unwritten codes. Never hurt your wife and kids. Darius's actions were considered the most despicable. That night, Darius was beaten within an inch of his life. From then on, his life was hell. He had to do the dirtiest jobs, scrubbing toilets, washing clothes, and giving his meager food portion to the leader. Every night, memories were his cruelest torturer. He remembered the warm mansion where Amara always waited. He remembered Zion's innocent smile. He remembered the days when society respected him. Darius looked at his calloused, scarred hands. These hands once wore a $1 million watch and signed multi-million-dollar contracts. Now they only shoveled waste. He realized that everything he once had wasn't due to his brilliance, but had been given to him by Amara. She was his good fortune. He had personally shredded his golden ticket. One day, Darius saw an old newspaper. On the culture page, there was a photo of a charity art exhibition. In the photo appeared a beautiful, radiant Amara standing next to a handsome Zion, holding a first-place trophy. And behind them, his protective hand on Zion's shoulder, was Malik Jeffries. The three of them looked like a perfect, happy family. Darius trembled, tears blurring the image. He pressed the newspaper to his chest, letting out a cry of pain. There would be no forgiveness. Darius understood he would pay for his stupidity with the rest of his life in torment and loneliness. He had lost everything. 3 years passed. In the western suburbs of the city, there was a dilapidated bar called the Rusty Nail. This was a gathering place for rough laborers and alcoholics. Kiara Vance, or Vivi as people called her now, struggled through the noisy crowd carrying a tray of beer. She wore a cheap, revealing mini dress. Heavy makeup couldn't hide the deep crow's feet, and her skin darkened by smoke and alcohol. In just 3 years, prison and social rejection had transformed the once beautiful secretary into a haggard woman. After being released early, she discovered the outside world was even harsher. With a notorious record, no company would hire her. To survive, she worked as a waitress in a dive bar, accepting being groped and mocked daily. A drunk customer grabbed Kiara's arm, laughing. He stuffed a small bill into her cleavage, his rough hand caressing her. "You're so worn out and still playing hard to get? Drink with me, baby, and then come with me tonight." Kiara suppressed her disgust, forcing a smile. "Sorry, boss. I only sell drinks." "Not myself." The man slapped her hard, sending the beer tray crashing to the floor. "Bitch, still pretending to be a virgin? Everyone knows you're the homewrecker who stole another woman's husband." Kiara clutched her cheek. Tears streamed down her face. The mocking laughter was like thousands of needles. The bar owner ran out. not to defend her, but to scold her for breaking property, deducting her pay, and kicking her out to clean the trash. Kiara shuffled out to the dark alley. The biting night wind cut through her thin dress. She sank down next to a pile of trash bags, sobbing. She remembered living in a luxury condo, driving expensive cars. Why had her life come to this? Just then, a frail figure shuffled over, carrying a large sack of recyclables. He stopped by the dumpster where Kiara sat, his blackened, trembling hands searching for empty cans. Kiara looked up under the dim streetlight. She froze. The man before her was skeletal, back hunched, face scarred and haggard, hair more than half gray. Although destroyed, Kiara still recognized those eyes that once looked at her with passion and also with hate. It was Darius Thorne. He had been released early due to a terminal illness. Homeless, he lived by scavenging trash. Darius also recognized the heavily made-up woman crying by the trash. He stopped, looking at Kiara. The two who had once conspired to steal the happiness of others met again in the most miserable circumstances, one a dive bar waitress, the other a scavenger waiting to die. Darius said nothing. He simply curled his lip into a crooked, bitter smile. He bent down, picked up an empty beer can at Kiara's feet, then turned silently and walked away. He didn't curse her anymore. The greatest contempt was pretending not to know someone. Kiara watched his hunched figure disappear. Suddenly she burst out laughing, a wild, maniacal laugh mixed with sobs. This was the price for being a home wrecker, for greed and cruelty. They had destroyed their own lives. In stark contrast, the art gallery on Martha's Vineyard was bathed in light today. An important cultural event was taking place. New Beginnings, a charity art exhibition for children. The main star was Zion Sterling. Now 7 years old, Zion was healthy and plump, his eyes bright. Amara Sterling stood in the center of the grand hall greeting guests. The last 3 years had imbued her with a mature, captivating charm. She wore an emerald green evening gown, simple but elegant. As CEO of Sterling Industries, she was now the most sought-after woman in elite circles. Zion stood proudly next to his center painting, explaining it to everyone. The painting depicted a small house by the beach with a bright sun, his mother, and a tall man holding a boy's hand. Malik Jeffries walked over to Amara holding 2 glasses of wine. His eyes were full of gentle affection. Over the last 3 years, he had always been by her side, helping her heal. He asked Amara softly if she was tired. Amara smiled and shook her head. "Thank you, Malik. Without your help, the exhibition wouldn't have been such a huge success." Malik looked toward Zion, who was now surrounded by reporters. "Zion is a perceptive boy who deserves the best, and so do you, Amara." Just then, Zion saw Malik. The boy waved frantically and shouted loudly, "Papa Malik! Come take a picture with Mommy and me!" The clear call of Papa Malik echoed. Amara blushed slightly. Her eyes sparkled with happiness. Malik smiled brilliantly. He set down his wine glass and walked toward the boy. He scooped Zion up, approaching Amara. The 3 of them created a perfect family portrait. Camera flashes flickered. Tomorrow this image would appear on newspaper covers, not as a scandal, but as a symbol of wholeness. Amara looked at the 2 most important men in her life laughing together. In her heart, the last iceberg of the past had melted completely. She realized the true dawn had arrived, a soft, warm sun illuminating the path ahead, a path of sincere love. Winter came early this year. Outside the city's most luxurious French restaurant, warm yellow light spilled through the glass doors. A man dressed in rags was hiding behind a tree. It was Darius Thorne. His advanced lung disease made him cough in hacking spasms. He no longer had the strength to collect recyclables, only to wander and beg. He wasn't here today to beg. He remembered it was Zion's birthday. A father's instinct, though tainted, still urged him to return just to see his son from afar. The restaurant door opened. Amara Sterling stepped out first on Malik Jeffries' arm, laughing happily. Malik carefully adjusted her scarf. Walking beside them was Zion. The boy wore a little suit. He looked like a little prince. Darius's dull eyes went wide. That was his ex-wife, his son. But now they seemed so distant, Zion held Malik's hand, skipping. The boy looked up and asked Malik something. Malik leaned down, ruffled the boy's hair, and laughed. Zion hugged Malik's leg with affection. That image was like a knife through Darius's heart. He remembered years ago how Zion used to long for him to come home, but he was always busy. Now that position had been occupied by someone 1,000 times better. Darius unconsciously stepped into the street. He wanted to lunge forward to call his son's name, but in that moment, the headlights of a passing car illuminated him, reflecting his image in the restaurant window. Darius saw himself, a haggard, dirty, smelly man. He compared that image with the elegance of the 3 people across the street. He froze. What right did he have to approach and embarrass his son? Darius retreated into the shadows. Hot tears ran down his cheeks. He covered his mouth with a hand to stifle his sobs. He watched Malik open the car door for Amara and Zion. The luxury car drove away, taking with it the whole world of happiness he had once possessed and destroyed. Darius collapsed at the foot of the tree, his choked sobs mixed with the wind. He understood that the cruelest punishment was not prison or poverty, but having to live and witness his loved ones happy with others, while he himself was eradicated forever from their lives. Spring returned to the beautiful coast of Martha's Vineyard, where Amara's family chose to spend their weekends. Inside a private villa, a small, cozy party was being prepared. Amara wore a long, pristine white dress, an orchid in her hair, standing on the balcony overlooking the ocean. The sea breeze ruffled her hair. She took a deep breath, feeling peace. 5 years ago, she had thought her life ended on that stormy night, but the love of her parents, Zion's growth, and Malik's unwavering presence had pulled her out of that dark well. A warm embrace surrounded her from behind. Malik rested his chin on her shoulder. He asked softly what she was thinking about. Amara smiled. I was thinking about the past. I used to think love meant sacrificing everything. But now I understand that wasn't love. It was blindness. Malik turned her around. You're right, he said. True love is respect, companionship. When both shine together, you don't have to sacrifice anything. You just need to be yourself. Amara Sterling, proud and radiant, I love you for who you are. He knelt down, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket. Inside was a simple but exquisite diamond ring. I've waited for this day for a long time, Amara. I promise you a peaceful home where you and Zion will never have to endure storms again. Will you marry me? Amara looked at the man before her. She saw her reflection in his eyes, whole and cherished. She nodded. Happy tears streamed down her cheeks. Yes, she said. Malik slipped the ring on her finger, stood up, and they shared a passionate kiss under the radiant sunset. Zion ran over, cheering loudly, hugging both their legs. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling stood nearby, smiling with satisfaction. The story of betrayal and revenge had concluded. Those who caused suffering had paid their price and vanished into oblivion. No one spoke of Darius Thorne or Kiara Vance anymore. They were just ugly specks of dust swept away by the wind. Amara looked at the vast, boundless sea, her heart calm. She understood that the greatest revenge against a despicable person was not making them suffer, but letting them see her live an infinitely happier life without them. And this happiness she would hold tight. The sunset cast a rosy glow across the sky, marking the end of a day and preparing for an even brighter sunrise.